What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be doing another mock draft Monday. This is going to be 2 rounds, no trades, one little exception to that, and all in one video. We are going to be having a trades mock draft as well this week, as I do every single week. So feel free to stick around, like, comment, subscribe, do the fun YouTube jazz. Y'all know how to use YouTube at this point. All the links are on that bottom ticker as well as in the description below. And then you can also see my board below my face. Things are continuing to change. It is what it is. And that's honestly the best part of watching college football, is that you get to continue to shift your opinion as you get to watch these players blossom into amazing players. So let's get right into this. Let's have some fun. Starting off with the number 1 overall pick. This is not the exception. If the Bears are here, I do think quarterback is a consideration. However, in this situation, I am not going to consider it. We are going to be going Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the Ohio State University. You know, he's just unique, honestly. There's not many guys who will be remotely close to the talent level that Marvin Harrison Jr. has. I have shifted my parameters for those who are more of that generational talent tier. It is going to be that purple group of the 3 at the top. Now, I am continuing to move Drake Maye and Bo Nix up. I just want to watch a little bit more All-22 before I officially move Drake Maye up into the top 3, because he's well deserving of it at this point. He's done a phenomenal job. And, you know, my only main issue with Drake Maye at this point is the fact this guy does not shy away from contact at a smaller size. He's not the most risk averse in terms of physical damage, but that's a topic for probably this or the next pick. So for the Giants, it's really down to Caleb Williams or Drake Maye. I'm going to include Caleb Williams in this one because last week I did not. So it's going to be a little bit more fun with a little bit of excitement with 2 top-tier quarterbacks right here. Technically 3, because Bo Nix has been absolutely incredible. So looking at the options here, it's Caleb Williams or Drake Maye. The question is, who do you want? Now, Caleb's proving to show a little bit of a temperament, right? He definitely has his non-leadership characteristics in terms of, you know, I want to just go home and cuddle my dog and watch TV shows. Now, you can microanalyze it and say that's a little bit too nitty-gritty, and, you know, to a certain degree, I do agree. I do also think that a quarterback has to be a leader of the locker room. And especially in New York, where you're getting flacked 24/7, I do think that there is a certain level of maturity that you need to have. And I do think Drake Maye possesses that more than Caleb Williams. Now, Drake Maye is not nearly in the spotlight remotely as much as Caleb Williams is, right? But Caleb has shown those cracks, and it does concern me considerably. Now, again, you could take either in either order, and you're going to be perfectly fine. The quarterbacks are going 2 and 3. For me, I do think Caleb is more one of one than Drake Maye. And I personally would be willing to put up with the BS of Caleb Williams more than accepting the standard level of level-headedness that Drake Maye has. So for the time being, again, until Caleb shows even more cracks, like, again, I'm saying this is a legitimate debate now in my head. You see my board, it doesn't say that. Like, legitimately, I would consider taking Drake Maye before Caleb Williams. However, in this situation, we are going Caleb Williams just because if y'all are not that good once again, there will be more quarterbacks down the road, and you will have learned your lesson. But I don't think anybody will fault a team for going after someone who could be the best quarterback of all time. That is the ceiling. He creates a lot of his own pressure. That's a big issue. But he also deals with a lot of pressure. His offensive line is not good. There's just a lot bigger issues than what Caleb Williams exactly shows that he creates. There are bigger issues that are translatable to the NFL, like offensive line issues that New York is not too unfamiliar with. Let's put it that way. But Drake Maye has also dealt with some poor O-lines here and there. I would not fault you if you say go Drake Maye at 2. So obviously Drake Maye will be the selection here. Quarterback is just, it's not going well for the Patriots. Weapons, tackles are also needed. But, you know, again, I'll say this most times. You don't have to get everything all at once. Like, life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And if you get your foundation correct, whether you want that foundation to be a quarterback or whether you want that foundation to be the rest of the roster, I'm not going to blame you either way. For me, I think this team has desperately lacked the ability to draft down the board for a stable game managing quarterback. For me, at this point, they've proven unreliable in getting the talent necessary at that position. So that's when you get the BPA and quarterback at the same time, because you naturally, no disrespect to the Patriots and y'all's fans, well, especially to the fans because you have nothing to do with it. Since Tom Brady, you guys essentially had nothing. And it's time to just say, screw it. We're at the top of the draft. Let's take the best quarterback that's available rather than let's try to get a value quarterback. So Drake Maye is going to be the selection. Again, my one main issue with Drake at this point of time is going to be the fact he does not get away from contact. He is not the biggest dude on planet Earth. He shouldn't be taking the hits that he does, but he takes a lot of them. And I'm not talking about that last 2-point conversion that was an absolute godsend. I'm talking about the casual runs that he's doing where he's lowering the shoulder instead of taking a slide 2 yards before when he's already got the first down. He takes unnecessary contact. That's my biggest negative on Drake Maye at this moment. At pick number 4 for the Cardinals. This was a pick, well, when the Cardinals were at 2, and I was debating this beforehand, I was thinking this would probably be the one time I do a trade. That being said, I am actually going to throw out my one little caveat, and I'm going to go after a defensive back here in Kool-Aid McKinstry. It's just the best value for the pick. This cornerback class does not have a ton of pure talent. And for a team that is truly lacking, I know defensive line, don't worry, we're going to get it in this video. That's the crazy part because I know it pisses off some Cardinals fans when I wait till round 2 on my trades mock drafts. But we will be addressing the defensive line. I actually have a tab open right up above that y'all don't get to see, but it is actually looking at the Cardinals roster, making sure that I understand where y'all are going to be, including free agency coming up. And a defensive back is a big position. It really does lack the true talent, and y'all have been performing better than expected. Kyler's back. I was saying that y'all would win a game at minimum with Kyler. People were saying that you guys would not win with Kyler at all. I don't get that nonsense, but it is looking like, there are some pretty bad teams, and you are still one of them, but you are better than what the consensus said, and I'm glad that, I had a little bit of faith that y'all were not the worst team, and it's starting to show out, so good for you. But Kool-Aid McKinstry is going to be a leader on the defense. He's a key guy to that secondary. Gannon's been used to having key dudes in the secondary. This is going to be a massive addition. Pick number 5 for the Bears. Already got Marvin Harrison Jr. I would debate going Olu Fashanu here or Brock Bowers. I don't know what's up with the hate for Brock Bowers. I know Cole Kmet's a good tight end. I never said anything about him being just a tight end. It says right there, weapon. We got to think a little bit. And he's not just a tight end. He will probably get 1,500 yards a year. You already got Marvin Harrison, so I'm going to back off of that idea. However, you could have 2 generational talents. Olu's not a generational talent. He's not. He has the upside to be a potential generational talent, but that's where you start getting a little bit overusing the word generational. You never see Brock Bowers in the world. You don't get to see Marvin Harrisons all the time. You don't get to see Caleb Williams. There are some guys who are remotely like Drake Maye. So that's where you start drawing the line, where it's have I seen a tackle similar to Olu Fashanu in the past 5 years? Sure. Brock Bowers? No. However, Olu Fashanu, I do think that Braxton Jones still has a role on this team. I'm still going to take Olu Fashanu. It's worth it. It's a left tackle, hyper athletic. His talent level, I don't think anybody's going to disagree, is better than Braxton Jones. And a lot of the most successful teams in the NFL have had some pretty damn good bookend tackles, and this is a good way to start with that. Pick number 6 for the Green Bay Packers. Brock Bowers is a very enticing offer here. Y'all don't need it, though. It's one of the few teams that don't need it. If you want to use him as a wide receiver, I would recommend that. But, this is a situation where you just drafted 2 tight ends. It's not like the Bears where you have a 3-year deal with Cole Kmet that's going to be 2 years at the time of Brock Bowers. But that left tackle spot could use some help. Joe Alt is going to be the guy. He's honestly, I could have went to Lisei Fuaga. I think he might fit you guys a little bit better, but ultimately you can keep Zach Tom at right tackle, even though I thought he just did a dirty ass hit at the end of the game. I'm a Steelers fan, so I'll pipe down a little bit on that. But Joe Alt's natural position, left tackle, he's gotten better. He had a little bit of a stumbling time, but he's getting back up there. Very happy to see that. Very good player overall. Pick number 7 for the Rams. For me at this point, I am debating going to Tyleik Fuaga. The only reason why he's going after Joe Alt now is because he had a 4-pressure game versus Colorado. I don't understand that. Granted, Olu had a 4-pressure game, but it was versus JT Tuimoloau in Ohio State. So, much different threshold. Tyleik, he still has room to develop. You could see the maturity, like, still not fully present. Granted, I do still think he is on the fringe of being a generational level talent. And I think the Rams would be very smart to go after a target like that. It's a foundational piece. You could look for someone like Bo Nix, where he essentially would have the impact of prime Carson Wentz on your team. He has the arm. He has the playmaking ability. He has the mobility. I do think that's a sleeper pick for the Rams, is Bo Nix. But I will go Tyleik Fuaga here. Brock Bowers wouldn't be a bad choice either, but I don't really feel like weapons are the thing this team needs. For the long run, I think tackle is where you guys will go. And whether you want to put him at right tackle or left, this is a longer-term project that's worth taking a risk on. And he'll work out at right tackle. The question is, do you want to move him to left? I would, just to test him out, because he's going to be a great blocker day one in the run game. But obviously, he needs a little bit more refinement as a pass protector. Pick number 8 for the Titans, another team that honestly could have used Tyleik Fuaga. Looking at the options available, and it sucks to see guys like Drazon Newton, Brock Bowers at this point. And you could just say, hey, let's get Brock Bowers and let's go balls to the wall, right? It's not a bad idea. It really is not a bad idea. I would debate it, but this team has so much invested in their tight end core at this point with Chigakonkwo, Josh Wiley. Like, you may not say those are big names, but to me, those guys are actually legitimate starters that you'll have for 3, 4, 5 years, right? So it makes this pick a little bit different compared to someone who will be a guaranteed boundary wide receiver. He fits Will Levis's profile in terms of exactly what he's looking for. You want someone to turn a 50-50 ball into an 80-20 ball. That's going to be what Keon Coleman does. He has the size. He has the speed. His one issue primarily is separation, and that hasn't really deterred Will Levis from throwing the deep ball. So I think he just fits perfectly. And I know my Titans fans love that pick, so I'm going to be rocking with that. At pick number 9, I am actually legitimately considering going Brock Bowers at this point. Again, it's not a team that needs it. You got Greg Dulcich there, for example. I do think that's a pretty damn solid option. However, you could certainly use a Brock Bowers. I don't really feel like that would be a move that the Broncos would go after. I don't know why. It's one of those intangible assets that I just don't really feel would be very realistic. Now, this could be my one little exception where I have one trade. I do think that is not out of the realm of possibility. However, I am going to do everything in my power to not do that. I do still think the corners on the board, i.e. Kalen King, who's getting a little bit underrated because, naturally, he got toasted by Marvin Harrison Jr. Everybody does. Like, let's pipe down a little bit on that type of hate. But he's going to be a corner 2 and not a corner 1. And he was absolutely dominant as a corner 2. To me, he is still right on that fringe of being a blue chip player. And therefore, I do think that he does belong as a top 10 selection when a team could certainly use it. He's a foundational piece to make a no-fly zone. Like, he really is. You're going to pair him up with Pat Surtain. Pat Surtain's going to help Kalen King with the intricacies of the game, where I still think he does need some development. But just like Joey Porter Jr., he's going to be an asset in the run game. He's very smart on his feet. I do feel like his field awareness is not as good as Joey Porter's, who, to be fair, JPJ was my number 2 player in the draft. He was my highest graded corner of all time in the zone specific category, which primarily tests the field awareness of a player. So, to be fair, it's pretty high standards to live up to. However, Kalen King is a very talented corner. He has good field awareness. He can just get a little bit better, and I think Pat Surtain would be a great mentor to make that happen. It's not very often you get to see very talented corners in the NFL be able to have an elite duo. It's very rare you get to see an elite duo. And some of the best teams with the best defenses have an elite duo. This is a good way to start. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it's a good way to start. At pick number 10, this is going to be Bo Nix. I hate to say it. He's playing as well as Drake Maye is. He's playing as well as Caleb Williams is. He's playing probably better. And he's outdueled Caleb Williams. He's just, I mean, I feel like he sometimes gets himself out of rhythm. It's my only issue with Bo Nix. Like, he is someone where he starts out the game extremely hot and maintains a very solid level throughout the entire game. But he does have moments where you do scratch your head. You're like, oh, I mean, like, you would throw that ball normally in the first quarter. Why are you not throwing as good of a ball here in the third? He does heat up in the fourth quarter, which is good. So he starts out hot. Maybe he meanders in the middle of the game, but then he reheats back up. For me, I think Bo Nix has been phenomenal, though. There's so much hate on him being a 23-year-old. Seriously? 23 years old? Quarterbacks last until they're 38 now. Let's pipe down on the hate in terms of that. Granted, some people might want more production or might say that, hey, he's been in college long enough, this should be the production. Nobody could produce at that Auburn team. Nobody has since. I'll give Bo Nix a pass. He's been phenomenal and well-deserving of a top 10 selection. I would be willing to take him probably here. I mean, I was definitely willing to take him at 7, but I'd be willing to take him top 5. Genuinely. I don't know how this is possible, but Brock Bowers is here. I mean, Washington needs tackle. They need edge rusher. At the same time, you're going to be able to probably never be in a position to draft a Brock Bowers again. I think, again, to be fair, I did have, graded-wise, I had Sam Howell as my number 1 quarterback in that class. So I'm a little bit biased, but I do think you have your quarterback of the future. There is money to spend now on offensive tackles and or edge rushers, even though you should have probably spent it on one of your edge rushers. That's a topic for another day. But you do have money to spend on proven positions that you can't get value in the draft. You can't buy a Brock Bowers. You can probably buy a J.C. Latham. Even though I really like J.C. Latham, still got to put that out there. At pick number 12, it's down to 2 players for me. I always go Michael Penix for this team. I do feel like a quarterback could be what really pushes the needle because it might be 10% away or 20% away for Baker to be between like Baker's production and Tom Brady's. Yeah, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get what I'm saying. It might make 80% of the difference in terms of the outcome of a game, though. You're here at 12 and not at 22, not at 32. Michael Penix might be able to get you to that 22 or 32. So the question is, do you want that or do you want a foundational piece on your offensive line with J.C. Latham and pair him up with Tristan Wirfs? I think both options are excellent. In this situation, I will be going Michael Penix Jr., however. I'm going to continue it because, again, it's the highest value position. He is unbelievable, and now his blindside protector, to be fair, is not going to be Tristan Wirfs. However, you could potentially move him back. That's a topic that you would like to discuss at that time. At pick number 13, we are going to be going a right tackle here in J.C. Latham, who has made a massive shift up my board. We are now being able to scroll down a little bit, which is wonderful. At pick number 14, Jerzon Newton's going to be the option here. Like, defensive interior is not the default option I would always go to for the Chargers. I do think a boundary corner, especially if Kalen King's available, is an excellent choice. We can talk about Nate Wiggins as well. Mike Davis is up for a contract, and outside of that, you don't really have a boundary corner too that's super respectable. So for me, I would be open to going a corner 2, absolutely. Wide receivers, you have both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen on for 1 more year. I do believe that there is the ability to release at least one of them and save money on the cap. But in this situation, you're getting a bona fide defensive interior guy who will be a leader on the defensive front. You have Tuli Tuipulotu as the option for the future at edge. So naturally, this is great value with a great player. And for me, I am all for this. So going Jerzon Newton is the option here. And it's a good choice. Good value, good player, good position. And just overall, you're not going to fail on that pick. And especially if there's a new coaching regime, you very well might be in a very good spot. At pick number 15 for the Colts, I don't think wide receiver is a big issue. I don't. That defensive back room could be a big issue. You have a lot of free agents that are up. You have a lot of money and a lot of free agents that don't cost a lot of money. However, until I see that, I do think a defensive back like Cooper DeJean is in the works. I do think a defensive interior should be in the works. You got DeForest Buckner coming up on a contract after this year. And besides that, Grover Stewart's up for a contract too. But you naturally don't have very, very much working in terms of guys who will actually win their reps. Adebawore, he's going to be the future there for sure, but he's super light. He's not going to be your bona fide interior defensive lineman one. He has a 9.7% pass rush win rate, which is great. But, I do still think if Jer'Zhan Newton is on the board at this selection, you go Jer'Zhan Newton. However, that's not the case. So the question is, do you want to go after Nate Wiggins or Cooper DeJean? It's not even remotely within the realm of possibility for me to go Nate Wiggins based on the cornerback style that you have, which is a much larger, heavier corner. And also we're seeing Jalen Jones, your 7th round pick, who y'all know how much I love Jalen Jones. He's starting now. So he's getting reps there too. He's a bigger 6'2", 205-pound corner. I'm going to go Cooper DeJean. You guys definitely could use it, not only as a corner on the boundary. If you don't get to sign Kenny Moore, which you better, but if you don't, he can work in the slot. But more importantly, this guy would be a lockdown safety, and I would love him. Even if you get Julian Blackmon back, I would love for him to pair up there with Nick Cross for the future, because those are two hyper athletes. If you want to put him at wide receiver, fuck it, just put him at wide receiver. But ultimately, this guy is going to be a difference maker, and he's super close to home. It's a home run pick. Pick number 16. So the Raiders, AOC is 2-0, baby. We love that. Now, the question is, where do we go from here? I don't think edge rusher is a position you need to target. Wide receiver isn't either. Unfortunately, those are the two best positions at this pick. I would be open to moving back in a trades mock draft, hint, hint, for this week, because I'm debating whether I'm going to review a 7-round mock draft tomorrow or not. But I do think a corner is the right way to go. We do have a limited amount of impact players. It's up to Nate Wiggins and Denzel Burke to me. Obviously, we've had some issues with some Ohio State corners in the past. And so mainly I'm going to be leaning Nate Wiggins here. I don't think offensive line's out of the question. And unfortunately, the defensive interior is a great move to go. They just aren't worth it at this point. Leonard Taylor has just not been himself lately. And I don't know, maybe that's due to injury. And I'm very excited to, go back, watch more and more tape of Leonard Taylor as it continues to come out and, be able to judge him for myself. But statistically speaking, this guy has not been worth the number 16 overall pick. I've had issues with his potential overall, let's just say conditioning, to be even nice. I've had an issue with his conditioning. And it looks as the season's been going on, he's not been performing as well. Might be a very valid concern. And if someone can't stay conditioned, I'm not over the moon about having him on my roster. Therefore, I will be going Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. I think that going after someone who's willing to help in the run game, but can also be a good ball hawk at a good size, 6'2", granted a little bit on the light side, but this guy definitely will be an addition, not a subtraction. You want to add assets, not liabilities at this point. This guy would be one of them. Pick number 17 for the Bills. Got to pick this up a little bit here. I do think wide receiver, based on the ones available, would not be a bad choice. Now, the question is, do you want to go after an Emeka Egbuka, or do you want to go after Malik Neighbors? That's an interesting question, because right now, who you want in the slot would be Dalton Kincaid, and you want Dawson Knox for the future at just an inline tight end. You don't need that to happen, but honestly, I'd be totally down for that. That would probably take out Emeka Egbuka for my consideration. Now, you could go Malik there. I do think that'd be a solid move. I do believe that you guys could upgrade an offensive line. And Amarius Mims is here. I'm going to take the cheap route. There is a very good chance he does not come back. Or he ends up going back to Georgia. But for the time being, I'm going to consider him. And he would be a massive addition, both literally and metaphorically, to that defensive line. Or to that offensive line. Pick number 18 for the Bengals. So wide receiver, slot, probably the way I'm going to go. Johnny Wilson has had too many drop issues. I like to take him for the Bengals, but I'm going to go after somebody who's equally as solid in the slot. I think T. Higgins ends up getting at least franchise tagged, if not re-signed, and therefore the slot with Tyler Boyd's going to be gone, especially after he dropped the game-winning ball this week. So I'm going to be going Emeka Egbuka. Pick number 19 for the Saints. I do think quarterback should be a potential option for this team. J.J. McCarthy, at 60 yards, and granted, he had 100% adjusted completion percentage. And it wasn't his fault that they didn't throw that much. And he made the most out of the balls he threw. I mean, Penn State couldn't seal the frickin' edge at all. They couldn't do it. They couldn't stop the run. So I would say don't shit on JJ McCarthy as much as the statistics say you should. I got to give credit to Jaden Daniels. He did look almost Lamar Jackson-esque. Like one of those guys who's so nifty on his feet and has actual playmaking ability as a passer. I got to give him credit. I'd be willing to take him if I traded back. Yeah, that's me saying that. I've been notoriously against Jaden Daniels. I'm taking my foot off that gas pedal. I do think that's probably the best position you could target. Wide receiver, I'm actually going to lean Malik Neighbors here. A.T. Perry's great. He's not going to replace that role. We have Rashid Shaheed up for a contract up this year with Chris Olave and then potentially Malik Neighbors. Malik is going to be an upgrade over Rashid. And Malik has been on a tear. The value's good. He's a homegrown guy here in LSU. I'm going to go Malik Neighbors. Do I think it's the best position you need to target? Probably not. But he is somebody who's going to be a massive addition to the offense. And I think the fact that he can stretch the field and replace Rashid Shaheed with somebody who has equal talent, and then especially after the catch ability as well, he's going to have an instant impact wherever he goes. At pick number 20, yes, I could have went edge rusher for the Saints, but surprisingly, y'all have guys signed until 2025 that are having really good years. Like, they're doing a very good job. Like, I don't know how to say his name. It's like K. Passignon, whatever the hell his name is, Granderson. And, I mean, Cam Jordan's still winning at a very high rate. You could get the future, but there is reason not to. But I am going to be going Jared Verse here for the Cardinals. So, corner, edge rusher, y'all know. Pick number 21. This is where I would consider taking JJ or Jaden, but I feel like JJ would fit the offense a little bit more. The question is, do you want to keep Josh Dobbs? I mean, genuinely speaking, you could keep Josh Dobbs. I don't know how he is playing at that tier. I don't think it will continue. Shadur Sanders, whenever I make a mock draft with Caleb Williams, he always returns. And it's pretty logical to believe that he returns. I'm going to go J.J. McCarthy, again, considering Jaden Daniels. But J.J. McCarthy for the entire year has been just so dominant. And the one time he's not, he still has 100% completion percentage adjusted. And essentially, it's not really his fault that they threw for 60 yards. They just ran the ball so efficiently. And you got to give credit where from Michigan, they did an excellent job there versus Penn State. At pick number 22 for the Cowboys. So a lot of people bring up actually the idea of wide receiver for this team. I love Graham Barton. That's my dream selection for the Cowboys at this moment. Because not only could he potentially play left tackle, he can go to center, and I actually want him to go to center. But the ultimate fact is, if injuries happen, which they do all the time, this guy's a plug-and-play player. And that's going to be a guaranteed success on your roster. Speaking of a team that I would have loved Graham Barton for, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And defensive back, unfortunately, Kalen King. Y'all know how much I love him. He's gone. We could definitely go after someone like Terry and Arnold, Josh Newton, Denzel Burke. I think Denzel Burke would be the guy who I lean out of those three. Also, based on my board, that's where I'd lean out of those three. Left tackle, Troy Fautanu allowed 5 pressures this week. We'll talk about that as well. I just don't really feel like there's a left tackle worth taking. I don't. Javon Foster, he's been developmental. Patrick Paul has been consistent, but I still don't know if he translates. Jordan Morgan's been excellent, but again, someone where I see a lot of times where NFL level players or NFL players exclusively would make a move where Jordan Morgan couldn't handle it. And then Troy Fautanu, I think, is an interior offensive lineman. I don't feel like targeting a guard at this moment unless they have center versatility, and I'm not going to do that. Therefore, I am going to look into the secondary here. And you could certainly get Tyler Nubin. I would be perfectly down with Tyler Nubin. But I do think we could potentially wait on a stronger safety. And therefore, I'm going to go Denzel Burke. I think Denzel Burke's a good complement there to Joey Porter Jr. for the long run. He still needs a year of development. Therefore, you could have somebody like Joey Porter Jr. or Patrick Peterson be a good mentor for him before he could truly take starter reps. But my goal right now and my contingency plan is to kick Levi Wallace's ass to the curb. So that's exactly what we're going to do. At pick number 24, Texans keep winning. Even though this is the Cleveland Browns pick. I mean, they're there at 20. But for this selection, you could certainly go an edge rusher here. It's not like you really need that much. The wide receiver core has been maximized. I would be open to seeing someone like Johnny Wilson be brought in as a tight end wide receiver hybrid. I don't think you have someone who could match his skill set, but I do think defensive interior is a good target. And at this point, you can go a multitude of routes, including T'Vondre Sweat. I just studied T'Vondre. He has been absolutely lights out. But, I mean, the question is T'Vondre Sweat or Chris Jenkins. T'Vondre is like 60 pounds heavier, and he's just going to be a run stuffer. And when you face Derrick Henry multiple times a year, being able to plug the middle, kind of a massive asset. So you're just going to get a very safe pick here, but someone who's an absolute monstrosity. T'Vondre Sweat, 362 pounds, and has a lot of upside as a pass rusher too. I'm very intrigued to see what happens, but T'Vondre Sweat, well deserving of that selection. At pick number 25, again, we're seeing the edge rushers fall. Y'all know exactly how I feel about them too. I literally have them in my top 10, so for those of y'all who believe that I'm hating, definitely not. But I do think Brandon Jones could be replaced. And, I think you have Elliott on your team. He's been kind of a career journeyman. I think Tyler Nubin's a good guy to target here. Offensive line, you could go after, especially based on how he's been playing recently, Jordan Morgan. Like, it's really up to you. I think Jordan Morgan is more of a second to third round type of guy. Granted, there's not many good tackles in this class. But there's also, as much as I wanted to say there's a lot of good safeties, the safeties are starting to show quite a few holes. So I'm going to go Tyler Nubin here. He's just a little bit more of an enforcer than Cam Kinchens, but I think that he complements what a Vic Fangio system is looking for. And he also complements what you already have there. So I think that's just overall the right pick. Pick number 26. So again, I don't really understand this edge need. Really don't, even though the value is unbelievably impeccable. Defensive interior just depends on if you re-sign the guys that you do have. However, I think this is the moment where I'm going to take Jaden Daniels. He's been playing out of his mind. He's been taking steps up game after game. Just this past game has been his true ascension. Normally, he was a guy where I didn't trust him as a passer, and then he'd make a big play with his legs. And I'm like, I'm great. That's awesome. That's what college quarterbacks can do. But what I've seen from Jaden is the fact that he's able to scare the shit out of defenses with his legs so much that it opens up opportunities in the pass game. I've seen that happen with Lamar Jackson to great success. Even though this past week they didn't win, it is what it is. I think Jaden Daniels would be kind of a final piece here. The fact that he has a big enough arm to where when he starts scrambling, if those DBs or linebackers start pulling in on him, and this guy sees Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, or even DK Metcalf deep, he's not afraid to let it go, and he knows how to do it efficiently. That's coming from my mouth. I know. It's weird, y'all. It's weird, but it is what it is, and I'm willing to give credit where credit's due. That's what I do. I don't care about being wrong. I care about being right in the long run and giving players the credit that they do deserve because they've earned it. At this point with the Niners, again, this is fucking atrocious. Apologies for the language, but it's atrocious. We got edge rushers on the board. You know why? Because this edge class is really good. And players naturally fall. Now, I do think corner is not out of the realm of possibility here. And there are some good corners. And including my buddy over here in Dwight McLaughlin, who after an update is still not in here. PFF, what are you doing? Terrion Arnold has been phenomenal, though. And this team's looking for a corner, too, to be impactful. This dude he needs to stay, at least with a team that has some form of red colors, because he looks, one, good in red. But two, he freaking is on fire all the time. And I think he's a great addition for the Niners. He'll let up yards, but this dude will absolutely blow up anything that you're trying to do. He'll let up one touchdown. Good luck. The rest of the game, this guy has a fire lit under his ass, and he's kicking your ass. Like, this is someone who I would dream to have as a corner, too. Now, again, could have taken him with the Steelers, and I'd be very happy with it. I think Denzel Burke could be a corner one, and be a very good corner one at that. I think Terrion Arnold should remain as a corner, too. But he is, like, not Batman and Robin. We're talking about, like, Batman and, like, 99% Batman. Because he thrives against these wide receiver twos. I don't trust him against wide receiver ones because I do see him get burnt sometimes. I do believe this guy could be a super special talent there. Pick number 28 for the Jaguars. At this point, I think edge rusher is the right move to continue getting extra depth there. Caleb Von Chaison's also up for a contract. Now it's your time to develop somebody special. And I think Chop Robinson fits that. Dallas Turner does too. Chop Robinson has he has an extra tier above most, if not all, of these edge rushers in terms of what he could be. Just the unique movement skills and the pure upside is well worth it at this pick as it is. Even though I have 3 edge rushers above Chop at the moment, or 4 edge rushers because I love Xavier Thomas, but 3 primary edge rushers that would be taken in the first round above Chop. I think Chop's ceiling, especially you have someone like Josh Allen trying to train him up, is worth it. I think it's worth taking potentially above them. So that's where you start valuing certain aspects of players a little bit differently. But at pick number 29 for the Ravens, I am going to be going after my guy here, and it's not Max Melton. I want to give Max Melton a little bit of boost to his ADP. It's going to be Dwight McGlothern, my number 21 player. He is one of the best corners pound for pound in college. He's not been completely healthy this year, but when he comes back, he has interceptions almost every single game. The dude's locked down. It's pretty much very difficult to find an issue with him, except maybe mobility. He's a little bit on the slower side, but he knows that, and that's something that's really cool to see him be able to. He's very self-aware, and that's a massive asset. For the Lions, I'm going to go Dallas Turner here. I feel like he fits the role that would complement what you already have there with Aiden Hutchinson a little bit better than Leatu Latu. Dallas Turner, I think, is better than Leatu Latu. I still haven't fully gotten there with Latu. However, I know a couple teams that would be pretty damn happy to get Latu. So we'll see that when the time comes. At pick number 31, All Roads Lead to Rome is starting to be really intriguing for me on this team. He does not fit the profile that I'd be normally targeting for the Chiefs. Again, I think Johnny Wilson's a little bit more of where I'd go for the Chiefs. However, I think the value's too good, and he could, it's just because something's worked in the past doesn't mean that a new system wouldn't work. Rome Odunze, he is a good athlete. Actually, I take it back. He's a very good athlete. So he would be potentially a really massive addition. All roads lead to Rome, and all roads apparently lead to freaking Kansas City out of any place. Kansas City, Missouri. Ridiculous. But at pick number 32, this is Latu or Trice. I think Trice is the much better player in terms of NFL translation than Latu is. However, Latu might have a little bit more momentum. It really depends on what flavor of ice cream you want. Do you want the guy who's going to be a little bit more powerful, or do you want the guy who's going to be a pure finesse player? With the Eagles, I think they have time to develop. Therefore, I do think they're going to be open to the upside rather than just the day one impact of Latu. Let's get here into round number 2. They've been looking for a wide receiver 1, the Panthers are, and it's down to Johnny Wilson, Xavier Legette, or A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell's been on fire. Got to give the dude some credit. I think Xavier Legette is just the most unique because he's faster than A.D. Mitchell. He's faster than Xavier Worthy, but he has almost the same size as Johnny Wilson in terms of weight, and he's a wide receiver 1 build. I think he deserves credit, and he's going to get it. Pick number 34 for the Giants. I want somebody that I can YOLO a ball up to if I am Drake Maye, and that's going to be Johnny Wilson here. He has drop issues on regular targets. Just go to your other wide receivers for regular targets. This guy, the weirdest thing about Johnny is the fact that he will make a 10% catch like an 80% probability, and he'll make an 80% catch feel like a 10% probability. I don't get it. Get this dude on the jugs machine. But ultimately, if you want someone who can make an Odell Beckham Jr. level highlight catch, this is going to be your guy, and you cannot get better value than him here at 34. At pick number 35, we still could get an elite receiver here in A.D. Mitchell. However, I do want to get a tackle, and Jordan Morgan's been playing phenomenally. This is going to be the best way to protect. Actually, I talked about Drake Maye here for the Giants. Sorry, Caleb Williams. It's the same story. Doesn't matter. Same shit, different name is what it is. Regardless, for Drake Maye, given the amount of contact he's probably going to give to himself, let's reduce the amount of contact with Jordan Morgan. At pick number 36 for the Cardinals, unfortunately, Braylon Trice is still here. That would have been a great addition. However, we're going to be going Chris Jenkins. I feel like it's a pretty good consolation prize. So Chris Jenkins' selection helps you on that defensive interior. So 3 defensive picks in a row. Pick number 37, this is Braylon Trice, right away for Washington. They need edge rusher pretty desperately. There are no right tackles I fully trust on the board, and Braylon Trice's value as a top 10 player, who I think is blue chip, I feel like it speaks for itself. At pick number 38 for the Green Bay Packers, we started out with Joe Alt, and now we're going to be going Cam Kinchens. Safety is a big position for us to target here, and Cam Kinchens is a great option. Great value, great option, great player. He allowed, I think, 96 yards this past week, which is no bueno, but, he has those games where he can completely take over. And at 38, that is well worth the price of entry. 39, the Rams took a tackle in Talise Fuaga in the first. I talked about how Leonard Taylor's been letting me down because he's not consistent or maybe not in shape, but he has unbelievable potential. Why not give him to Aaron Donald to get him to that potential? Leonard Taylor, the third, going to the Los Angeles Rams. At pick number 40 for the Titans, we went after Keon Coleman in round number 1. This honestly wouldn't be a bad spot to go after a left tackle. I don't trust Kingsley Suamataia at left. He'd have to be a right tackle for me, and I don't even know at this weight whether I do trust him in that role. I do know that Christian Fulton is probably going to be up for a contract, and I don't know if he gets re-signed. I think a corner like Josh Newton could be a massive addition in that regard. Other positions of note, you could look at some edge guys, but, for me, it really is down to those positions, and we've already addressed that wide receiver spot. Again, you could go Kingsley and try to train him for a year with the guys that you do have, because you still have, unfortunately, Andre Dillard under contract for a while. But, Chris Hubbard can still do his own thing. Nicholas Petit-Ferreira can do his own thing. Maybe not to elite level, but maybe give him one more year of mediocrity and then see where Kingsley ends up. That is an option you could totally go after. Tyler Guyton has a ton of upside as a right tackle, but I'm not fully sold on him either. However, at this point, it is at that spot where I feel a little bit more comfortable going after a player like Tyler Guyton. At pick number 41 for the Saints, we went after a wide receiver in round number 1. I'm saying Quinn Ewers and Shedeur are going to return. Quinn Ewers, he just needs more time. Joe Milton, man, this class really thinned out quickly. I honestly think Shedeur, Quinn, Riley are all going to return, and I don't think any of the other quarterbacks are worth it at this point. I need to continue dropping Joe Milton because he's looked absolutely atrocious there. He's just regressed. He hasn't even progressed. He hasn't even stayed neutral. He is regressing because he's staring down his freaking target. Unbelievable potential, but this dude is not learning, and it is frustrating, to say the least. Frustrating. I did talk about it earlier, but I do think you could go actually after an edge rusher. Defensive interior, I actually might want to go Mason Smith here, pair him up with his buddy there from LSU as well. And you can have him be, again, you're going to get another pass rushing specialist rather than a pure run stuffer. But I do think it's worth it. It's worth taking the shot on him because he also is very good in the run stuffing ability. But, you do have the upside of him playing edge rusher too. I love the versatility. And when you have this up in the air aspect of your defense where you don't fully know exactly what's going to happen, this is a guy that would be I know we'll eventually find a spot for him. And that's worth taking at this point. At pick number 42, we got a quarterback in Bo Nix in round number 1 for the Falcons. At this selection, y'all have been saying that you're probably going to re-sign, I'm tripping up, Jeff Okudah. I do think at this point, it's probably worth taking JT Tuimoloau. Your offensive line's been doing pretty damn solid. Again, I think the offensive system more than anything that needs help. But I'm going to go JT Tuimoloau. We're going to pair him up there with Zach Harrison, who you drafted last year, buddies from a year ago. And he fits right in that Bud Dupree role. I would love to see him take a more extensive role. And he's been doing a good job, so I'm glad to see him here at 42. At pick number 43, this is where I'm willing to take a swing on Kingsley Suamataia because the offensive line's ass as it is. So, you're getting a guy who has potential to be something really awesome. And I hope he adds a little bit more weight because I do think that he doesn't understand his body yet and he needs time. This is a team where they're going to be willing to accept the length of time it takes to develop because it's not like you're going to get much better by not starting him. So it's going to be a little bit rough to start out, but he's going to eventually pay off. I promise you that. At pick number 44, this would have been also a team where I debate going Kingsley because he could be a pure right tackle. At this point, I don't really see any other right tackles that I would take. I just don't. And there are some really good players, again, some really good players who are falling in this draft. You got Jonah Ellis here, who I think is spectacular. Princely, who's done a very good job. Jonah's a little bit more athletically gifted, I would say. I don't think you need to go after a tight end in this situation. It really is down to edge rusher, but I do think linebacker as well. This is the time where you can start taking them. And to me, it's Junior Colson or Danny Stutzman. Danny's a little bit better of an athlete than Junior, but Junior I think is better and more polished all around. The question is, what do you want to develop? I would personally not want to fully develop Danny Stutzman, and I think Junior Colson has just been phenomenal. Therefore, we're going to go Junior Colson. At pick number 45 for Green Bay, we got tackle, got safety. I know run stuffing defensive interior is a position y'all continue to bring up, and I think Tyleik Williams would be an excellent addition to that. It's a lower value pick, and it's a player with unbelievable potential. He's been racking up 3 pressures a week, by the way. He is a good pass rusher. And at the 330-pound frame, or, Tyleik Williams is not 290. Pause the F out of here. He literally said he went up to 330. He is 330 pounds. Let's not make a joke of that. Michael Hall is the one who is 290. Even if he is 290, that is wild. He was literally 320 pounds. Let's pipe it down. He is not 290 pounds. Regardless, he is going to offer something that you guys don't have already. And he is such a good player. So regardless, even if he's 290, he's an elite run stuffer with unbelievable pass rushing upside. That's worth pairing up with what you already have there. Pick number 46, we got Drazon Newton in round number 1 for the Chargers. For me, I think at this point, I would be taking a guy like Jatavian Sanders. I'm intrigued to see the other tight ends they've added. Dallin Holker is pretty fun too. But we're going to go Jatavian Sanders. It's just a weak tight end class, and this guy is probably going to be an addition to a Kellen Moore offense. Pick number 47 got Cooper DeJean for the Colts in round number 1. I do think that if there is a developmental tackle like Karan, I would be willing to take him and have him grow and develop. That being said, this is not a team I really see taking guys to grow and develop. Running back, tight end's fine. Wide receiver, again, this is where it makes more sense. It's like, hey, I'll take A.D. Mitchell to be what Alec Pierce kind of should have been. And I think it's fair. At this point, Alec Pierce hasn't really proven to be the player I was hoping for him to be. And A.D. Mitchell, he's a damn good guy. He's a damn good player. So this is a spot where he could be a really good wide receiver 2 on the boundary. At pick number 48, defensive interior, another spot where we can go after one. Dante Corleone would be a massive addition. Like, there's a lot of good defensive interiors in this class too. You could totally get one down the board if you wanted to. You could, of course, go linebacker. It's worse value. Again, you could go, running back, this could be the first running back that comes off the board. But there's so many running backs in this class. It's just not worth it, y'all. It's really not worth it. We went Nate Wiggins in the first round. I am going to go defense interior with Dante Corleone at this point. 320 pounds. If the Packers fans, if he is actually 290, the Packers fans could swap Dante Corleone and Tyleik Williams. I'd be perfectly fine. So, got to put that little disclaimer in there. And pick number 49 for the Buffalo Bills. We went after Amarius Mims in the first. At this point, I'm going to go safety or corner to get an extra defensive back in there. And Kalen Bullock is, PE is just so underrated. I'm going to take him for the long-term play. At pick number 50 for the Bengals, defensive interior is an option. We already went slot wide receiver with the Emeka Egbuka. There's no tight end available. Actually, surprisingly, Jonah Williams has been playing pretty well. I would be in the mood to take Troy Fautanu just so I could have potential left tackle, but more so in a very aggressive interior offensive lineman for the future. Not overly huge fan of what you already have there. I could go Kamari Lassiter here. There's really not a bad option, I would say. You could go whatever route you want to go. But I'll go defensive interior. We'll back it up. We'll back up the defensive interior route and pair up Rukaroro with his buddy there. It is a very Bengals pick. You're going to pair up Rook with his buddy Myles Murphy. So you're going to get that instant chemistry as well. Pick number 51. We are going to draft a future tackle. We are. And it's going to be Karan. He is unbelievable. I did have him fall much farther than this in my trades mock draft. However, I just really think that the Eagles should be getting a developmental tackle for the future. Injuries also happen, to be fair. Karan's going to be coming off an ACL tear, but this guy, unbelievable potential. Unbelievable. One of the best athletes I've seen. He needs more time to develop too. So it's just somebody worth taking a year or two in advance and just seeing what happens. It's a free pick from New Orleans. Just take it, kick back, and enjoy it. At pick number 52, we took Tavondre Sweat for the Texans in the first round. At this point, again, you could try to add something that receiving core. Like Brian Thomas could be an absolute studded selection because you don't have someone 6'4", 205 who's going to be a great deep threat like Thomas is. He's essentially Troy Franklin, but bigger body, and you don't need it. But you're at that point where you just need more cohesion overall than an actual, like, it's not a talent issue, especially like on the offensive line. There's a ton of dudes that just, this is a guy who could be an addition nonetheless. At pick number 53 for the Vikings, we went after a quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, there in the first. At this point, you could go after another defensive back like Josh Newton. I think that'd be a very smart thing to do. Or you can go after Kamari Lassiter and then develop him because you do have guys who can play for at least a year. For me, I know that the Eagles fans would probably want Kamari Lassiter. There's some good corners in this class. I think it's the right thing to do. Let's go Kamari Lassiter here and take the developmental player. At pick number 54, Josh Newton could be the best choice here for the future. I know Deron Bland has been playing very, very well, but this team doesn't actually need that much. Ultimately, this would be a smart move for the franchise. You always need more corners anyway. This guy's right down the road there in TCU, and he is a massive addition to a secondary. At pick number 55 for the Steelers, we took Denzel Burke in the first round. At this point, I still might go Troy Fautanu and just say, screw it, we'll put you at center or guard, wherever you will find yourself. Still got Christian Haynes on the board, but he's had his struggles respectively. We're going to go Jackson Powers-Johnson. Hyper athletic, so he fits what the Steelers have been drafting recently in terms of offensive line, and he fits a massive need for us in the long run. Jackson Powers-Johnson out of Oregon, massive riser overall. At pick number 56, so looking at the best guys available, I don't think safety has any value here. I think wide receiver, like with a Jalen Polk or a Troy Franklin, would be your best bet. Jalen Polk's going to have a little bit more size to him, and he's going to be a little bit more what you're probably going to be looking for to replace Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is now in Detroit. At pick number 57 for the Dolphins, this is a good spot to go after Troy Fautanu. See where he ends up. It's not going to be a negative. I can guarantee you that. So that's a good move. At pick number 59 for the Giants, I would be open to TJ Tampa here because if I'm not mistaken, Adoree Jackson's up for a contract, and TJ Tampa is going to be a really, really solid corner. I do think linebacker is not fully solved for the future. Could again go interior offensive line, and honestly, Christian Haynes, I'm all for it. He's a top 11 player on my board. He's had his struggles, and he goes to a smaller school, so very similar to Karan, who has a higher value position than Christian Haynes. You're betting on the athlete more than anything here, but he's someone who's just worth it. At pick number 59, we took a corner for the Niners in the first round, Terrion Arnold. I'm going to still look back on the offensive lines at the moment. Zach Zinter has been absolutely phenomenal. Just super consistent. You could take Patrick Paul here and develop him. He has proven to be really good on a college level. The question is, will he be good on an NFL level? It might be worth taking the shot, if I'm going to be honest. I think Javon Foster could be worth taking a shot on as well. But this might be a very Niners pick. I don't always agree with the Niners offensive line picks. They sometimes work out. Therefore, I think that it is within reason that the Niners would go this way. At pick number 60 for the Jaguars, we went after an edge rusher in round number 1. At this point, I do think we need to target a wide receiver, and I think Troy Franklin could be that great target. Just 187 pounds now, so he added 10 pounds. He's been getting better. He had some drop issues earlier in the year, but he's getting better and better. I'm a big fan of that. For the Ravens, 95% sure I went after my number 21 player in the class, and I did in Dwight McGlothern. Otherwise, I would go after TJ Tampa for the squad, which means Lions got a pretty damn good player falling to him. However, wide receiver being an issue is just, that's a ridiculous claim. I do think a running back pairing up with Keaton Mitchell would be a smart idea. The question is, do you want to take Bucky Irving now, or do you want to take a risk of them being there later? And since this team is so run heavy, I will have them be the first one. It's Jonathan Brooks or it's Bucky Irving. You can choose between the two because I don't really feel like another one's going to come off the board. I'm going to be a homer and go Bucky Irving, who I thought was one of the best running backs in college last year, and he's continuing to do a very good job this year. For the Lions, we got an edge rusher in the first round. At this point, we're going to be going after TJ Tampa, cornerback out of Iowa State. Just again, consistent, solid year-over-year production, just overall worth having on your team. Pick number 63, we got all roads lead to Rome Odunze in the first round. At this point, defensive interior would not be a bad idea. There's a lot of different options here. Byron Murphy has been honestly pretty damn lethal. And I know that I take Brandon Doyles quite often for this team, so we could just go after a different choice here in Byron Murphy. He's still able to be moved around quite a bit because he's a good athlete, and I feel like that's very up the Chiefs' alley. So Byron Murphy out of Texas it is. Y'all drafted Keandre Coburn last year anyway, so you guys do value the defensive interiors from that school. So it's good to see some precedent there. Eagles' final pick. I do think maybe I should have taken corner earlier, and maybe I could have had Karan at this point, right? Or taken Blake Fisher. Regrets happen. It is what it is. However, you can still get a linebacker here, and I'm going to go after the 240-pound Danny Stutzman to be a true Mike linebacker and pair up with Nakobe Dean, who hopefully comes off of that Achilles and finally lives up to the potential we all know he can. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the far side.